All right, this is Dr. Attardo, and welcome to intro to actually general linguistics, English 555. And so let me just say a few words. As you know, we've had a little bit some technical problems. Dr. Nelms, as of this recording, is still unable to access the course. So in the meantime, I am going to be uploading the version of the syllabus that is for the face-to-face class. It doesn't really change significantly, but for the time being, mostly it's the contact information that is different for obvious reasons. You will contact Dr. Nelms as soon as she can be contacted. But for the time being, if you have questions, you should contact me. So we're going to upload the version of the syllabus for the face-to-face class for the time being. Then as soon as Dr. Nelms can, she will upload her syllabus, and then you will work off that one. Also, normally we would upload the video of the actual lecture that takes place on Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. from 4:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. But we had technical problems unrelated to the hurricane. It was just a technical thing, and so we were unable to do the recording at that time, and so we're doing this extra recording. And thank God we have very dedicated staff. Shihunli, I commend you for the poor guy has heard this lecture twice, and he's heard it before already, so by now he's ready to shoot himself. Again, if you have any questions, any problems for the time being, contact me at the email that you already have, and that is on the syllabus. So let's talk about this class a little bit so that you know what to expect. Now, first of all, this class is, as we say there, a leveling course. So what does leveling course mean? Basically, because this class is kind of a requirement for all the other, for most of the other classes in the program for linguistics, people of very different skill levels as far as linguistics goes are going to take it. And it can range from absolute beginners, somebody who's never taken a linguistics class ever in their career, it could be. People have been known to live perfectly fine lives without ever taking a class in linguistics. They don't know what they're missing, but they can do it. Or people who already have a master's in linguistics and who are entering the PhD program and for whatever reason have to take this class. So it can be that some of the students have extensive experience in linguistics and some students have none. But that's okay, because the purpose of the class is to make sure that everybody has the same background. Because even if you have been exposed to linguistics, you may not have been exposed to everything that we're going to talk about in this class. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more towards the end of the lecture, there are different approaches, there are different methods in linguistics, there are different schools. And so some people even disagree as to what constitutes the core of the discipline and what should be taught in introductory class and not. Our approach here at A&M Commerce in this program is more inclusive than most. So even if you've had an intro to linguistics, you may be surprised by some of the things that we're going to talk about in this class. So again, the purpose of this class is to make sure that everybody has had the same exposure to some basic fundamental concepts. Now, having said this, if you've taken some linguistics before, you're going to find the class to be, a bit more accessible, because you will already be familiar with a lot of the things. Maybe the terminology may be slightly different, but the concept should be familiar. If you've never taken any linguistics, you may find it actually quite challenging. Because linguistics is a scientific approach, unlike if your background is in literature, for example, it may be a bit rough. If this is your first graduate course, again, it may be a little bit of a surprise. This is not an undergraduate. This is an academically challenging graduate level course. However, do not panic. Okay, so take a deep breath in case you were panicking. Take a deep breath. The class doesn't presuppose any knowledge of linguistics at all. Okay, so basically we will introduce every concept from the absolute beginning. Okay, so even if you've never taken any linguistics at all, if you follow along with the lectures, you will be fine. Okay, you put in the work, you will be fine. Okay, so this is a class that is precisely designed to provide with the basic information so that then you can build on top of this foundation. Now, you may ask, well, why do we need to know this stuff? After all, maybe you're taking this class because you want to do the master's in TESOL, in applied linguistics, and you say, well, why do I need to know general linguistics, right? If my purpose is to get a degree in applied linguistics, why should I know general linguistics? And some of you just say, well, I'm just taking the class because I want to, so that's fine. Okay, but if you were asking that question, well, you need to understand that applied linguistics is, well, essentially the application of general linguistics to various problems. Okay? Now, in the American context, when we say applied linguistics, we mean primarily language teaching. Okay? And usually teaching English to speakers of other languages. That's what TESOL stands for. But in fact, there is all sorts of applied linguistics that falls under the umbrella of applied linguistics. So I've listed there a few. You've got computational linguistics, which is another area that you can specialize in here at A&M Commerce. There's lexicography, there's forensic linguistics. Lexicography is when you write dictionaries, okay? So forensic linguistics is when you use linguistics evidence to solve criminal cases. Speech pathology is when people have problems with speech, with pronunciation, and you use linguistics knowledge to help them overcome these problems. Okay? So basically, the basic idea is that you need to know the theory, in other words, general linguistics, in order to understand the applications of the theory. Okay? Because it's very easy to have a very shallow understanding. You can sort of toss around the jargon of linguistics, but if you don't understand it deeply, all that you have is a shallow understanding. And the moment you're going to encounter some real data, usually shallow understanding falls apart, whereas a deep understanding allows you to solve the problem. Okay? So that's our methodological stance, is that you need to understand the theory in order to do a good application. Now, the other thing that you may be surprised is, this class is a dual modality class. And you may say, well, what is a dual modality class? And you might be perfectly justified in wondering. This is something that we've basically invented here. We're sort of cutting edge in this respect. There's only very, very few other universities that are doing this. But essentially, you can think of it as an online course that exactly mirrors a face-to-face course that's being taught on campus, so that the online students have exactly the same experience, the same syllabus, the same assignment, the same test. Everything is exactly the same for the online students and the face-to-face students. So what we do is we normally tape the lecture with the live students in the class. As I said, this time, due to technical problems, we are taping it in studio. But other than that, it's exactly the same lecture. Then we upload the videos so that the online students can see the videos, they have the PowerPoints, they can follow along, they have all the assignments, the reading, everything is in the shell. Now, the extra twist that we have put on this, because one idea wasn't enough, we needed several, because we're that good. The other twist is that you can actually, if you are in the online class, you can actually attend virtually the face-to-face class. And you will find in the doc sharing area a document on how to do this. It's called Zoom instructions or something along the lines, because you use an application called Zoom. You download it to your computer or to your phone, and you log in into a virtual telepresence gizmo that lets you be in the classroom, and you can see what you see through the video of the gizmo, and you can actually even turn and, you can ask questions to the teachers. You can even talk to the students in the class, although we don't recommend doing that because otherwise you're not paying attention, right? But you can be there. Now, you don't have to, okay? That is, if you, work, for example, on Tuesdays at 4:30, okay, no problem. You just watch the video at your leisure. But if you want to be there, if you want to ask a question, if you just want to participate in the class, if you can't wait to hear the words of wisdom that we will provide in class, then you can log in and be there, and then you are there. Okay, I mean, you're just not physically there. And we've had students from Italy, we've had students from China, etc., log in and be there remotely. So there you have the information that I just said. Now, an important thing that you need to be careful about, that the class is on a weekly cycle. Okay, so from this perspective, it matches exactly the face-to-face class, right? So you cannot just say, oh, I'm going to, catch up 3 weeks later. The assignments will be due. There will be assignments due some weeks, not every week. But so if there is an assignment, the assignment is going to be due, I think, the Saturday of each week. So you have a certain number of days to do it. So you need to kind of keep up with the class. And that is a really important thing. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again at the end of the class. You really need to keep up with the material in this class. Otherwise, you will not do well. Okay, that is really important. You have to find the time during the weekly period to keep up with the material. You cannot cram the last 3 days before the final. It's just impossible. Okay, so I just want to be very clear about that. Now, the other thing that you may be asking, we say on the syllabus, we said online, there is no textbook in the class. And so that you may be surprised by this, but no, it's true. All you need to know will be provided to you in the lectures, which is what you're listening to right now, in the PowerPoint slides, which is what I'm pointing at right now, which the PowerPoints will be uploaded in the doc sharing for each week. Right after the lecture, so you can download it, you can look at it on your computer, and any other materials that I will put online. But there is no textbook per se. Now, you might say, but I like having a textbook. Okay, then go ahead and buy a textbook. Okay, and if you want a recommendation, well, this one, which I co-authored with a very good friend of mine and colleague, Steve Brown, and Cynthia Vigliotti, who's also a friend of mine. So if you want to buy a book, buy that one if you want to, or buy another one. Any introduction to linguistics will do. All I can tell you is that no book, not even the one that I wrote, will match exactly this class. Okay? So for example, the reason that I'm not using the textbook that I co-authored, is because you only would be using really 3-4 chapters of the whole book. Okay, so it seemed pointless to have the students buy a book that has how many chapters? 12 chapters, and then only use a third of the book. That seemed silly to me. And conversely, there are things that we're going to do in class that are not in the book. So it's not a perfect match. Now, can you use Wikipedia? No. Because God knows what's on Wikipedia, God knows what's on the internet. We'll talk more about that. But any textbook that's been published by a reputable publisher, therefore has been vetted, will be okay. Okay. If you don't know, if you're in doubt, shoot me an email. I'll be happy to tell you whether it's a good idea to buy that book or not. All right, so let's talk about internet sources. I have found, for reasons that I can't fully comprehend, that students really want to use internet sources. Now, again, as I said, don't do it. Okay, you're not required to. There is no need to use internet sources. But if you have to use internet sources because you have this compulsion to Google things, all right, fine, go ahead and use them. But be super careful, because you will get yourself in trouble. Okay, and then you will have yourselves to blame if you look up stuff and then it's wrong or God knows what. So the first thing is don't plagiarize. Okay, we have had several instances in graduate school. I know, hard to believe, but we've had these cases in which students, there's a question on a comprehension review or something, and they will go and Google the answer and then cut and paste chunks of text. If you do that, you have to attribute the source. Okay? If you don't do that, it's plagiarism, and that's a very serious issue. Okay? And in fact, if you plagiarize twice, you can be expelled from the university. Okay? So we don't want that. All right? So be super careful. If you're gonna cut and paste, you need to acknowledge the source. Okay? And generally speaking, there is on the syllabus a whole section about academic honesty and integrity, and plagiarism is a huge component of that. The basic rule is actually fairly straightforward. The basic rule is this: if anything that you say, it's not your words, if you took the words or the idea from someone else, from another source, you need to acknowledge it. How you do so, I don't really care. Use APA, because that's kind of the standard for the program, but you have to provide the source of where you took the information if it's not you talking. Okay? The moment you don't do that, you get in trouble. Okay? If in doubt, err on the side of caution and attribute things, even if you think, well, maybe I shouldn't attribute it, but provide the reference anyway, in case you don't know whether you should provide the reference or not. Or ask your instructor. That works as well. Now, second thing, you may find on the internet sources that are perfectly reputable, but that will present the information differently, or will present different information, or information with a different focus than what we provide in the class. While that's not technically wrong, it may be confusing, because you probably might find websites that say the opposite of what we say. It's not going to be the opposite definition of morpheme, but you may find a different definition, a slightly different definition, and then it might be confusing. So that's why I say, it's not necessarily a good idea. And then it gets even worse. The internet is not curated. You can find all sorts of things on the internet, including lunatics that put up, websites to defend their own pet theories, or, God knows what, right? So if you don't know, if you don't understand, if you don't realize that what you're looking at is bad information, you may accidentally, quote that bad information, and then you get your answer wrong. Okay? And again, that's not good. Or you may find really advanced technical information that may be totally confusing because you don't have enough background to follow that. And so again, it's not a good idea. Okay? Remember that saying, well, I got confused by the internet is not a good excuse if you got your answer wrong on a test. Okay, so keep that in mind, before you go look stuff up on the internet. So at this point you may say, wait, if there is no book, if we cannot go on the internet, how are we going to learn anything? Well, remember I said, first of all, you have the lectures, which is what you're listening to right now, and that includes, by the way, the whole thing, including discussions, question and answers, any of that. And these will be uploaded every week, usually by the end of the day or early the morning after. Then the slides, which is what you're looking at right now, and then any readings that we may upload as well. Okay? Now, and this is super important. I should have put the caveat bullet there. Don't just read the PowerPoints and skip the lecture. The PowerPoints are just where I keep my examples, I keep the bullet points so that I remember to say everything I'm supposed to say. But other than that, they are not the complete lecture. Okay, they're just reminders. They're just like the examples that I use. Okay, so the PowerPoints are not the lecture. What will be on the test are the lectures. The PowerPoints help me deliver the lecture, but they're not the lecture. Okay, so you need to be very clear about that. If you only read the PowerPoints, you will fail in this class. I can promise you that. All right. So having said all this, we now move on to what is language. Okay, that is, this class is called General Linguistics, and linguistics studies language. So basically, at a very simple, very general level, 10,000 feet view, language is a means of communication. It's basically something that you use to communicate with other people. Okay? A more technical definition is that it's a semiotic system. A semiotic system is a system of signs. Signs are things that are used to indicate meaning. Okay? So, again, this is a very, very general definition, not that useful. So it's more useful to look at what are the components of language, which happen to be the subparts of general linguistics. Okay? So when we say general linguistics, these are the parts of linguistics which are the parts of language. Okay? So there is phonetics and phonology, which is the part of linguistics that studies sounds, and we will distinguish between the two. Morphology, which basically studies how sounds are put together to create words, very broad sense. Syntax, which is how you put words together to form sentences, again in a very general sense. And then semantics is meaning. These things, words, sentences, have meaning, right? So semantics is how is meaning conveyed through language, and pragmatics is how does meaning change depending on the context. Okay? So if I say, this is a lovely jacket, and I mean it, right, because I think it's a lovely jacket, then the meaning of it's a lovely jacket is fairly straightforward. But let's say that the jacket is like pink and I dislike it intensely, and I say, what a lovely jacket, then I'm being ironic or sarcastic, right? And at that point, I don't mean what I am saying. What I mean is the jacket is ugly, right? So that is what pragmatics studies, how the context affects the meaning of the sentences. Okay? So again, this is just a very, very quick, broad outline, and roughly the class is structured along this perspective. If you look at the syllabus, you will see the outline of the course. You will see that it follows this this outline. Now, remember I said there's theoretical linguistics, general linguistics, and that's the phonetics, morphology, etc. But then you have applied linguistics, right? And so then you take general linguistics, you apply it to various problems. I call these hyphenated fields. So you have sociolinguistics, which is the application to the study of society, sociology, right? You have psycholinguistics, which is the application to psychology, right? So how do people process sentences, how is language stored in the brain, that kind of stuff. Ethnolinguistics is basically anthropology and language, so language and culture. Neurolinguistics is language in the brain, so If you have an injury in the brain, what does that do to your speech capacity? If you have a stroke, what happens to your speech capacity? That kind of stuff. Language acquisition, how children learn languages. Second language acquisition, how adults learn another language after their first one, right? And then you have teaching English or Spanish or French or Chinese, that is any foreign language, to speakers of another language. And again, this breaks down into how do you teach a language to children, how do you teach it to adults, right? So there are differences there as well. And then the most important thing is etc. Okay? There's plenty of other fields, like philosophy of language, for example. Plenty of other fields that just, we're not gonna, we could spend all day here looking at applications of linguistics to various fields because they're very, very numerous. All right.